Communication is key, and we need to have regular communication. Don't just do a plan and set it aside.
Welcome to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle, with your host, Rob Schultz. Rob is the founder and president of Schultz Wealth. All opinions expressed by Rob and his guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Schultz Wealth Limited. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Please refer to our website for more information.
Welcome everybody to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle. I am your host, Rob Schultz. We're going to talk about estate stuff today. Estate, probate, your business, what it is that we need to be doing to prepare in case something happens. We've had this topic before from time to time. This go around, I am really excited because we have a quarter of a century expert.
Wow.
Can you believe that? It's 25 years is a quarter of a century, right? 25 years of experience in estate planning, probate. And Tammy, you work with business owners just like I do. So,
Absolutely.
So this is for our business owners out there, which I think that's pretty much everybody that listens to this podcast. Tammy is the person we want to talk to about this stuff. Tammy Silvas, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this is such an important topic. With business owners, I say it all the time. The retirement transition / if something bad happens scenario is especially complicated.
It is
because you have this big, complicated, illiquid asset that you have to deal with, and I mean, I have stories. I have a personal story, even as most people know, and you have a story. You have different stories about how, it can be better than how it turns out a lot of the time.
It definitely can. I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
But being prepared for those things is so important, and business owners don't regularly stop and think about that.
Yeah. Well, just most people don't.
That's true.
Stop.
That's absolutely true. Most people don't.
Yeah, but business owners, especially maybe because we're so busy.
Yeah.
And have so much going on, and sometimes complexity just kind of causes us to shut down a little bit. I mean, we sit there and we go, "Man, this looks hard. I think I'll just work on my business some more and hope nothing bad happens."
Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be fine for years to come. That's going to happen later.
Yeah.
It's not always the case, but.
Yeah. So some of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about regarding this is, first of all, it's hard enough to decide how you're going to transition your business if everything goes the way you want and the way you plan. It can be especially difficult if something happens to you. What are, some of the, I guess, disasters or things that can occur if we don't do the proper planning?
Oh my goodness. If you don't do the proper planning, there's a multitude of things that could happen and probably would happen. But for a business owner, especially, I mean, if you can't make it into the office the next day, who's going to be able to access your bank accounts? A lot of business owners don't even have the right people in place to access their bank accounts, much less be able to manage the lease, pay the payroll. And I'm just talking about if you're incapacitated, they don't have the right structure in place to keep all that going if they're not behind the scenes making it happen.
Okay, so step one, who can sign the checks?
Who can sign the checks?
Okay, and what are some solutions regarding that? Because I mean, you want to be careful there as well from a control standpoint.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So depending on your level of business or whether you have partners in your business or you're the owner and you have a lot of employees, you obviously want to have the person picked out who's going to be able to do that. For a lot of business owners, they have their right-hand man, their assistant. Maybe or maybe not, you want them to be direct access to your bank account, but powers of attorney, a business power of attorney to be in place if you're incapacitated is one of the foundational documents that any business owner needs so that somebody that you have picked out, vetted, whether it's your spouse, your child, your partner, has the ability to do the things that you already do.
Okay. So from the bank account standpoint, then, some of my thoughts are, well, first of all, if your primary control is that you're the only one that has access, and you're going to change that, that sounds like a good thing. Like you probably ought to have some other controls in place besides just who can sign the checks.
Mm-hmm.
And also it sounds like you can have it where I guess that springs forward when a power of attorney comes into play, and that needs to be carefully guarded as well, though, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's something that you hold until it needs to be handed out. Is that correct?
Or
Is
you
that
have in the way that the power of attorney is drafted, you have the controls in that. Things
Okay.
that have to be proved, like you're incapacitated or the right people in place with only certain abilities. You don't want it to be a blanket, you're in control of everything.
Okay.
You can build that into the document, but you definitely want the people who need to step in and use it to have the ability to get access to whatever you've created, that document, and be able to get it to the right institutions to be able to step into your shoes.
Okay. It sounds complicated. It does. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, it sounds like there could be several steps there, even if you have the proper documentation in place. Like for instance, the banks, you have to deal with, it has to be something where they look at all of it and they say it's okay too. Have you ever had any issues with any of that?
Banks turn down powers of attorney all the time.
That was a loaded question because I knew
you wanted that answer.
Because that is such a big problem now.
Yeah, it is. They turn them down. We had a bank recently, a client come in who had, this is not a power of attorney I drafted, but it could have been one that I drafted. They came in to the bank. They went to the bank and the bank turned it down because the notary stamp had expired. Notaries expire every 4 years. That means the power of attorney.
So the notary signed it with a stamp that was valid.
Yes.
But yet no.
Correct.
You're kidding me.
I am not kidding you.
Okay.
The bank wouldn't accept it.
Well, I didn't expect it to turn into a podcast beating up on banks, but this is definitely a huge issue that we have seen. Mm-hmm. Okay, not only with business owners, but just even like not only just a power of attorney, but a joint account, for instance, will flat get shut down.
Yep.
If one spouse dies, and this is where all your bills come out and all that, and they're like, if the surviving spouse notifies the bank just like, whoop, stop, we're going to need a death certificate and nothing's going to happen until then. Mm-hmm. And that's such a horrible position to be in.
It's awful. I have seen so many families and businesses shut down, can't do anything until they've gone to court to get the right person in place. And that can take months.
That's crazy.
I know.
Okay.
It is. It's sad.
Okay. So it sounds like to me, I think I would want to just have somebody within my business that has access and is able to step in and doesn't need like a power of attorney necessarily or anything. That just, we have the right controls in place. We have the right person who's trusted, and and I might get in trouble for saying this, but I am not kidding. Like with husbands and spouse with joint accounts, I will tell the surviving spouse, don't tell your bank that he died. Yes.
Oh, we have to have that conversation. They'll call. Yeah.
Just don't tell the banks yet. Don't tell
any bank yet. Do what you need to do bank-wise while you have access to it. Don't say anything.
It feels wrong, but I mean, that's what you have to do, right?
Because they will. A lot of banks will immediately shut accounts down, especially if it's in that individual's name. If the business owner, the one spouse is the only one on the business banking account, I don't care, community property laws or not, they're not going to let the other spouse come in and sign. Yeah. Or even the other partner, if they're not married, they're just business partners, and that partner isn't on the bank account. They're not going to let them.
I'm thinking people on the bank account. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so that's like if you have a business and probably you own it all yourself, and something happens, you're incapacitated. First thing, you got to have some way for for the operation to continue,
Yeah.
what are some other things that we need to be thinking about and planning regarding that?
Regarding incapacitation, well, so we always look at things from the 5 Ds. You've probably heard there's different variations of what planners would call the 5 Ds, and that's what happens if there's a divorce.
Right.
So what happens if you're in a partnership and your partner gets a divorce? Well, this is Texas. It's community property laws. That spouse that you may or may not know, may or may not like, might end up owning part of your business. How do you plan for that? That's got to be planned for from day one.
Okay, and that's your buy-sell agreement that your spouse has signed, right? That's the traditional way of dealing with that. Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people don't. Either they don't do a buy-sell agreement, or it can also be in their company agreement, but they just take it boilerplate. They print off a company agreement, LegalZoom, and it has some basic terms, but it isn't anything like what you need to think about. Like, okay, what are those shares worth? How do you evaluate those? If you do have the right to buy them back from that spouse, how long do you have? A lot of those boilerplate ones are going to say 30 days. Is 30 days really long enough for you to decide, yeah, I want to go ahead, especially if your partner is not in their right mind because they're going through a divorce or whatever. They're not thinking right. Giving just 30 days, that's what most boilerplate agreements just have. And they don't have a way to evaluate how much the business is worth, like that you've really thought about, or a way to actually pay it. How much can you pull out of your business or your personal accounts to be able to buy out that spouse who is now divorced to get the business back into your hands?
Yeah, no, that's a crucial part of it, and obviously that's the funding side. And there are different scenarios that can occur, like you said, death, disability, divorce, etc. The death one's the easy one that we usually see most of the time. They'll have what we call a funded buy sell with life insurance. We don't see like a lot of them funded for disability buyout. And we have it for my partner and I think it's like super important, but I don't see it a lot. Do you?
No, a lot of people. Well, it's definitely not in a lot of the boilerplate forms that people tend to use, and nor does it. No one wants to think about being disabled.
No, I don't.
But the truth is, I think the last statistic I looked on that is 1 out of every 24 or 25-year-old that exists today will be disabled before they retire.
Yeah, the statistics are insane on it.
Yeah.
A lifetime ago, I had an insurance license as well as my securities license, and I used to sell a lot of disability insurance in the business market. So I really believe in it. I think it's a very, very important product. But like you said, it's complicated. Unlike the death one, now you have a ton of questions that you have to answer. Not only the valuation, et cetera, and so forth, but hey, how long are we going to go here with you disabled? Are we going to go 90 days, 180, a year?
That's hard.
And then what does the buyout look like? Because most of the time, disability buyout policy, you can't fund it all the way with the value of the business. So you're going to have some type of structured note or something like that.
Well, let's just go back to, what does it mean to be disabled?
Yes. Yeah, even insurance companies can't agree with that. Yeah.
And in every business, that looks different. You're in a business where you're mostly at your computer all day. Certain disabilities aren't going to affect your ability to work.
Right.
Where that may affect your ability to work if you're in construction, and you need to go on the job sites all the time. And so y'all have to decide, not just the insurance company. And if you're getting it funded with a policy, yes, they have to be in agreement, but the partners have to decide, what does it mean if you're disabled? And it needs to be defined well in their buy-sell agreement.
So the ones I've seen that have funded disability buyout policies, it seems like to me it's important to have full 100% integration between the insurance company saying yes, you're disabled, and the agreement saying that you're disabled.
Yes.
So I have seen it. How do you feel about this, where almost the agreement defers to the determination by the insurance company? Can you do that?
You can. I think the best ones that I've seen, we've gone back and forth with the insurance company.
Oh, I bet.
We sit together define it, send it to the insurance company. They'll push back, rework it so that there is a bit of an agreement. But yeah, in the end, you are going to defer to the insurance company.
Okay. Yeah.
They're the one paying out.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Okay. Have you ever had a situation where that's occurred? I'm sure that in disability, I can't think of where in a partnership we've had that happen in our practice where it's actually been occurred. I'll bet you it's even with really good planning, it can get really complicated and ugly in a hurry.
It can. Oh, all these things get complicated and ugly in a hurry, which is why you also can't just, all right, today we've done our buy-sell agreement. We're great. We're not going to look at it for another 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
You really have to look at it at least every 2 years.
Yeah.
Reevaluate the valuation of the business. Look at again, what is disability? What's gone in our worlds? What else do we need to edit that we agreed on so that you're not having something that you wrote 10, 15 years ago that doesn't even really apply to the life of the business anymore, much less your own personal lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. This is hard stuff. And of the D's we were going down, death, disability, and then we were on divorce. So I skipped around. So But on the divorce one, any other traps there besides just making sure you have, a solid buy sell, everybody's in agreement, spouses and everybody. What are there any other traps there or things that we need to think about?
I think it's just really the traps kind of tend to be personal based. You've got to have discussions. So many people believe, I just pull this form, or hey, attorney, I just need a buy-sell agreement. Will you send one over? And you can't. I need to sit down with the partners to discover what their concerns are and what those traps might be for them, the things that they don't want to be involved in. What are the relationships with the spouses, with the children on either side of the partnership? All of that's just important to have a good discussion about. And I think that's where these fail, is the professional not digging enough into what could happen. What are your expectations? To the partner? What are your expectations if this would happen? And papering it really well, making sure it's crafted and not just a bunch of boilerplate.
Well, I got to agree with that. All right, so we got some more D's. Is one disillusion or where?
So it depends on who you ask. But yeah, disillusion, desire to leave.
Yeah, okay.
Downturn in the market, the business isn't doing well. Those things kind of all tend to fall under that one.
Okay,
disillusion.
So somebody goes through a midlife crisis, it's like, man, I'm out. I'm gonna just go to South America or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have a friend who's going through one of those right now. Those are tough.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a friend. I've had two of those, like good friends, in the last few months have gone through those.
Mm-hmm.
Those are hard.
Well, because you've been in business with this person, you had expectations to be with this person longer. It's like going through a divorce in your own personal life.
Yeah.
And then how do you replace everything that they brought to the table? How do you, when you're thinking ahead of time, how do you even value that person's ownership of the company because of what they bring to the company? So in addition to planning for them to potentially leave and, the remaining partner needing to be able to buy them out, you've got to also think, well, how do I replace what they brought to the business?
Yeah.
Because they probably had some unique skills, thought processes. They helped set it up. There's a relationship that goes much deeper. How do you replace that? And that's part of the whole problem of how do you even buy them out? How do we value this thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that, I don't know, in the recent experiences I've had, I think the hardest part has been that there are two different perspectives.
Mm.
That's obviously sometimes when it comes to that, that's what's happened. Yeah. I mean, there's just two different perspectives, two different realities. And for whatever reason, they can't seem to find the middle ground. And that's when you go to the documents, and the documents better be good.
And better have been updated regularly,
yes,
because your expectations are going to change over the life
Absolutely,
of your business.
Yeah.
So planning for the divorce well before it happens, it's sadly, you have to do that in your business relationships. So many, people come, whether it's 2 or 3, like, we're starting this business and he's got this piece and he's got this piece and it's going to be great. No, we're not worried about that. No, you need to be worried about that, because your life's going to go through ups and downs, and it's going to take your business with you, because you're all personal. You all have personal lives that are going to affect the business, and somebody will be disillusioned along the way. Whether they actually leave because of that disillusionment or not, we don't know, but you need to be prepared for it.
Yeah. So the next question regarding, like, let's say partners, business, and representation. How do you usually do that? Because, there's some of the different owners, I guess, can have, do they need their own representation? How do you do all that?
Yeah, I recommend that every partner have their own attorney.
Okay.
If at all possible. Now, there's plenty of times when they say, I don't want that. I don't want the expense of it. If you're in my firm, you're going to sign off on a waiver.
Understood.
That, we're going to pick who I'm representing. Was it going to be one of the partners? Am I representing the business? And it's going to be known by everybody up front.
Okay.
And you're going to sign off on it.
And then if there are, different representation, I guess, there's generally going to be one attorney that takes the lead to create the documents and all that kind of stuff, and then it goes for red line and all that.
Right. Usually that's agreed upon, or the first partner who said, "Hey, I'm getting this done. Sure. I'm gonna go get your counsel," and then we just all go round and round. Sometimes I've had where we all sit at the same table like this and hash it out. Those tend to work better.
Sure.
Because you can hear everybody's, oh, this is really what you want. Okay, well, how about we do it this way instead of just the back and forth red line? It's not my favorite way to do things, because you don't get the thought process behind why are you making that change and how could we make it better.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad to hear that, because I've been caught up in red line hell before. It's some point you just go like, whoa, time out.
That's a good way to put it.
We're gonna have to talk this out.
You do, because it's like, what?
Why
did you write that?
Yeah.
And then when you get the behind it, like, oh, okay, how about we do this then? This will be the happy medium for both of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to talk it out.
Yeah.
Before you.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think that was a really good discussion on kind of if you have partners and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Let's take a break, and then I think I want to talk more about like when there's like a sole owner and what they can do, because sometimes they don't have the same situation really. They have it's different. It's
all on their shoulders.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a break, and we'll come right back. Whether it was 1 generation ago or 7, more than likely as an American, an ancestor of yours took an extreme level of risk in order to create a better way of life for themselves, their family, and eventually you. Most families have a story to tell, at least one story. My family ended up here in Texas when their wagon broke down in Del Rio. The wagon train they were a part of continued westward, only to be completely massacred. I'm Rob Schultz, founder of Schultz Wealth. Our clients are entrepreneurs and business owners, the beneficiaries and true torchbearers of our American pioneer legacy. Our clients are not afraid of change. They are hopeful about the future, and they create wealth for themselves, their people, in this country through innovation, creativity, and hard work. Our job at Schultz Wealth is to help make sure it counts for something. If you're a successful business owner, let Schultz Wealth help you to the next level and beyond. And we're back, and as promised, we're going to talk about that 100% owner, the big kahunas, the whole deal. As you said, everything's on their shoulders. Is there a buy-sell agreement? There's not even. Is there?
No, there's no buy-sell agreement, because a buy-sell agreement is what happens when one owner wants to buy or sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Or gives the other the opportunity to buy those shares, that kind of thing. With one owner, you don't have that person to agree to. So that one owner actually has just as much of a need, though, to figure out what happens if any of those things happen in their world. too.
Maybe even more so.
Because it's probably pretty evenly the same to me, because it's still going to affect your business. A divorce in your world is going to affect your business. You passing away unexpectedly is greatly going to affect your business. And that's where you see these, good going concerns fall apart with an unexpected death of the business owner. Because, I mentioned right from the beginning, who's going to access the money, who's got the keys to the money, but also who can sign the contracts, pay the leases. The bank accounts can get shut down in the middle of a probate, or right when they find out, because there's only one person on the account who can access all of that. I mean, businesses fall apart when one owner, businesses lose that owner.
Okay, so it becomes a leadership issue to me. So because the owner dies and the family owns the business. Family hasn't been in the business, let's say, probably hasn't, has no experience from a leadership standpoint. You got to have a really good leadership team.
You do. And deciding who has that ability, I think even the trust. A lot of individual owners, they don't know who to trust. I have so many clients who have an expectation that their kid is going to be fine. Oh, my family's going to step in and do it. Well, they're either young, haven't been in the business, don't understand how it works, but they have this other person that's kind of, been right along with them the whole way, been working there for years, and they haven't put their trust completely into that person for no reason other than it's not family,
Yeah.
And it can be a good thing to go ahead and have that person prepared to step in and operate the business. Your family can still inherit the business, receive the profits from it, and there's ways that we can structure that, but have that key person that has been right along with you, that knows how to operate the business, that knows how you've made your decisions, whether it's, your decisions on employees, hiring, or business contracts, but they can step in and work that for you, or work that for your family, and they can still get paid. Your family can still receive the profits off of it. And so a lot of people just don't think that way. They think immediately, oh, my family's going to come in and it'll be fine. And I'm here to tell you that most of the time it's not fine unless that family really is working in the business.
Yeah, we've said a number of times on this show, leadership and ownership are two different things. And in this situation, it certainly is. I mean, it seems to me we have a term we use in our business just called a lifeboat drill, and that's where you just go through and, all right, let's pretend you just died. Everybody loves it. They think it's so much fun. Yeah, they love this pretend. But we'll do that, and it's like, okay, so like you said, who's going to access the business? Who's going to make the operational decisions, et cetera, and so forth? What are some of the things? And then just start walking through it, and making sure that you've got some leadership in there that can continue the business as a going concern, so it doesn't turn into a fire sale.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think about this. So a lot of times in this situation, my advice will be, let's deal with that. Okay. Make sure that, you're working on your leadership team, but that's always a moving target. At the same time, let's insulate your family from your business. Being the old life insurance salesperson, right? Just go make sure you have a lot of life insurance to just make sure your family's okay, regardless of what happens to the business.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's inexpensive, and just do that just to make sure you don't have to necessarily worry about that. You can sit there and go, okay, well, I need to work on this, with the business as far as my transition in case, bad things happen or good things happen, always something we're working on. But at the same time, I need to be able to do it and not be worrying about whether my family's okay.
Absolutely. I think that's super important. Life insurance both ways. Life insurance to make sure that the family is okay and doesn't necessarily need money from the business immediately, but life insurance to also make sure the business can keep going and get you replaced or get the business sold, whatever needs to happen, there's got to be money to go in there and fund the employees at that time of loss. So more than one policy with different outcomes.
Yeah, on both sides, the whole deal. There's a life insurance agent out there listening to this going, yes, more life insurance. But yeah, life insurance is super important in what we're talking about, because again, it's one of those things that just springs into existence right at the exact right moment.
Yeah.
You know,
and you don't have to worry as much about what kind of process is needing to happen to get money out of the business, because your family or the business both are taken care of, at least in the temporary, while you're trying to sort all that out.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a super important way. Another thing that I recommend for a lot of my individual business owners is a trust to hold the business. Maybe.
Okay.
So there are two different types of trust, revocable and irrevocable. If you have a revocable trust during your life and we can put your business into it, you still run it like it's yours. There's no tax implication on it, but we can have it avoid probate. So no court stopping the process of the business keeping going. You can have somebody else step in, the trustee, who can immediately run your business. They have the keys to the kingdom, because now they've stepped in, but they don't step in until you're passed away. And then you have the rules as to whether they need to sell it, who needs to receive money from it, who can be put in, who are the managers. It's a great way. And then it becomes irrevocable at your death, but they have all the rules and the right people already in place. And no one had to go to court to make that happen.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never thought of putting the business in a revocable trust.
I know.
That's genius. I love that.
It's a smooth transition.
That seems like a really good answer for that sole owner, for sure. Because then, it's basically like your buy-sell agreement, but it's just an agreement.
Yes.
Which is what you need, which you don't have. I really like that. That's a great idea.
I think it is one of the best solutions for small business, individual owner business that you can come up with.
Because we get too caught up when we have a business. I think I'm at fault to this. It's like really trying to move the tax, tail, so to speak. As you're talking about, oh yeah, we have a lot of them that are like in limited partnerships and things like that. But just super simple, just a revocable trust. With all that lined out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then you don't really have to, and it works for incapacity too. So it takes care of
absolutely
what we started off
works really well for incapacity, which is why we see them so much these days on the personal side.
Yes.
And I've become a huge fan of, and we were talking at the break, and you're a big fan of as well.
Yes.
Because why did probate get so hard all of a sudden? What happened?
I think it's just we have. I'm going to speak to Texas.
Speak to Tarrant County too.
It's just growing and growing. The numbers of people who are having to tax the court system are expanding. It's growing, and so our court system is just becoming more and more sluggish, just due to the numbers. And so it takes a lot longer to get through the process. So Texas does still to this day have one of the best, easiest probate systems in the United States, which is why probably a lot of your listeners have heard probate's no big deal.
Yeah.
But many of them have probably seen that it is a big deal.
It is now. I used to say that. I used to say, let's not worry about it. Let's just have the traditional will and do the probate. But we've really made a big shift. I mean, it just seems like we've just had some bad experiences, and we've had clients that are just like, I hated that.
Yeah.
That was awful, and you think about it and it makes sense because, it's an emotionally trying time, it adds complications. It's a world that, it's a lawyer world. It's a judge world. It's a world that we're not used to. And it just adds to the stress.
We'll just put down the simple fact of you're dealing with the clients, whoever's going to be the executor, their schedule, the judge's schedule, the other attorney's schedule, the ad litem schedule. And you're just trying to get a court date. with everybody's
Yeah,
schedule
that
to
sounds
work.
terrible.
Already, that's difficult. Like I said, the systems are very taxed here in Dallas and Tarrant County.
Yeah.
And so just scheduling is hard, much less all the paperwork, all the hoops that you have to jump through. And then I want to add the component for small business owners or any business owner, probate's public record.
Right, right.
So now you've put values of your business out in the public world, that can be found, and you're going to receive correspondence from people who want to represent you in different ways that you don't even want to deal with. It's just, there's a lot of hassle on that, not to mention the just the process while you're going through the grieving.
Yeah, another reason why I don't know why I never thought of like the business being in the revocable trust before, because then it protects it from all that as well, because that's where you definitely want some privacy.
Yes.
It could create competitive issues for you. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody has to know a thing when it's in a trust.
Yeah. All right. I'm really liking that. I am a big fan of the revocable trust these days, and especially because of the incapacity side of it. That makes all that so much easier, as well as the power of attorney side as well, right? Because because it's in the revocable trust, you're not going to get any flack from a banker on that, right?
No, when we talked about earlier, powers of attorney are turned down for the craziest of reasons anymore. A bank won't accept that. Then you have to go to court to get a guardianship, right? That's going to take months, sometimes longer, and awful. Yeah. But if it's in a trust, you have already picked out who your substitute trustee is.
Yes.
The bank already has record of who the substitute trustee is. They're not going to turn it down. They can't turn it down.
My experience is that goes pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, revocable trusts. Very good.
Revocable trusts are very tools, an attorney tool. I think of it as my toolbox. It's one of the best tools, one of my regular tools to use for both incapacity and death, and definitely for small business owners.
Love it. Mm-hmm. So I have a good friend client who passed away, and he's typical. Just very, very successful person who, I guess the best way to say it, kept everything very close to the vest. Okay. And when he passed away, that caused a lot of issues.
Sure it did.
And I sit here and I'm like, man, it could have been better. And it upsets me. It makes me feel like, well, what could I have done to, I guess, help the situation? I think I tried everything I could.
Sure.
Okay. And anyway, I wanted to say that today because I know that that's a tendency. I have that tendency. I think a lot of business owners are just that type. And what can we do to get, types like me and like my friend to stop that and to try to share some information and make sure that, things can go a little bit better?
I think that can be very difficult. It's pretty normal. And honestly, especially in older generations, not going to tell you anything. Families don't know where any documentation is or whether it exists or not. My ex-father-in-law passed away recently as an attorney. Said he had a will. Nobody could find it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is normal across the board. I'm not just talking about people who don't practice law or, this is an example of someone who knew what to do. And
absolutely.
And his family couldn't find it, so it's the mess of probate, beyond probate. Sorry, intestate. Yes, it's which is even worse. So I recommend to my clients, if we're meeting with them, I get asked a lot. Well, what do I do with this? Who's going to know? How would they know we have this? Well, we have copies of everything. You need to share with your family at least who the firm is, so we can work with them. But let's have a family meeting. Yeah. You have problems. You may not realize how to talk to your family about these things. I'll lead that for you. Let's just have a family meeting and talk through why you created things the way you did, and answer your kids' questions or your spouse's questions if they weren't involved in the process, so that they have a good foundation of, okay, this is why we're doing it this way. This is the expectation should there be an incapacity or death. And everybody's on the same page. And it's so important. I think most of the infighting comes when people are surprised. They expected to receive more. They expected there to be more or less assets. People are shocked. Oh my gosh, there's millions of dollars there. I didn't expect that. Or, oh, the business is failing. I didn't expect that. And then all of the grief of the loss of the individual is intensified by the unexpectedness of what's going on with the assets and the estate and the family members, and oh, you mean my brother's going to be in charge, not me? I don't understand. Well, if we had just had a conversation about that, and even a continual conversation over life, you're going to have less fighting in the end because the expectations are understood.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for all of us, a goal should be, there's going to be a lot of emotions. If I die, there's going to be a lot of emotions, for my family. There's no question.
Yeah.
Let's not add to it that they're pissed off at me.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't share enough information and set everything up right. Let's take that one off the table.
Well, and more than likely, even if they're pissed off at you, they're going to take that out on their sibling or their stepmom.
It just creates issues. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I really, so I don't think we do enough family meetings. I think that's something that I want to start doing more of. They're hard though. They're complicated. It's hard to get everybody in the room.
It is.
We do have, we'll have clients that will bring in, one of their kids, for instance. A lot of times that happens, certainly with our older clients, which is really, really good. And then, we keep a full accounting, like a balance sheet,
Yes.
that and we do it. And I've told clients here recently, it's like, hey, you know what? Something happens to one of y'all. This is what we're going off of right here.
Right. Right.
We're going to go this is important. We're going to go right down the line and talk about how each one of these is going to transition. And they go, oh yeah. And that's exactly what we do. But we don't do enough family meetings where everybody understands the intricacies of the estate plan, though. We need to do more of that.
I think it keeps the conflict to a minimum. And some families, it will just prevent there being a conflict because they understand and respect what dad or mom did and why they're doing it, even if they don't agree with it.
I think some of the fear, though, is that it may fast forward some of that conflict, though. It's like, I don't really want to talk about this with them because I know they're not going to like it. There can be some of that.
That's true, but wouldn't you rather deal with it before it becomes something worse?
Well, some people would.
Yeah, no, I know. I say that. I understand.
Yeah.
I'd rather kick it down and not deal with it right now. But if you don't, it can be really hard on the family.
Oh, yeah.
When they're right in the midst of it with the grief added to it. So deal with it. It's sort of like planning for that divorce again. Doing a prenup's hard. I've sat with many potential spouses. It's hard, but gosh, does it make it a lot better. And many of them don't have to be used, but at least now they've entered on the same page and they have an understanding of what the expectations are.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. Those are super important. And then, final issue on all this. So you can have the family meeting, you can get all the estate work done, et cetera and so forth. You already mentioned it should be updated from time to time. Just seems like a lot of the time, well, because I'm not an estate attorney. I live in the world to a certain degree. My clients even further removed from it. We walk out of that meeting and document everything, and a year later we're like, we don't understand any of this.
Right.
That becomes a real issue. We try to use some different tools and flow charts to help, bring them out and try to refresh and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any insight or any, I guess you could say, advice for us for kind of keeping it relevant and understanding what it is that we have in place?
Well, I think what you said, we have to pull it back out.
Yeah.
So with any estate plan or plan that we do, we have a a chart, a graph, and a list of assets, same as you. That like, this is the flow chart of what happens if, right? What's created and what needs to happen. Here's the assets and what needs to happen with them, whether it's a beneficiary designated asset or it goes to the trust, so that they all work together. Those are great reminders, but to your point, people look at it and go, I don't get it. Yeah. Even though I spent hours with them explaining it, 6 months later, they're like, wait, why did we do that?
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, 2 weeks later, what?
Oh, no, no question. Yeah.
So it's just the regular review. We recommend at least a 3-year review.
Okay.
Some people, and I would venture to say a lot of those are my business owners that have things that are changing regularly, need more than that. Even up to a year or more, just to sit down and go, okay, this is what we did. This is what happens if. Reminder. Why did you choose this? Well, because this is why you chose to do it this way. And we talk through the reasons why and figure out if we need to make any changes, because life changes, the law changes regularly. But it's that going back to communication. Communication is key, and we need to have regular communication. Don't just do a plan and set it aside and think that you're good for years to come.
Big mistake. And that the other thing is just making it a priority. I make it more of a priority than probably most people because I just see it all the time.
You're in it.
My dad was a business owner, died young, lost the business. I mean, that kind of set where I do it every year. At the beginning of the year, I don't want to do it. I've got plenty of other things to keep me busy, but I sit there and read through everything that we have.
That's good.
And I get with my attorney, and and we made a couple of tweaks this year. Not every year do we make some changes, but just do it, and then at least I can put it aside. I know I'm going to look at it again in January of 26. So I can not think about it at least between now and then.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, every 3 years for sure. Some business owners every year.
Every year.
No question.
Yeah, we offer plans that we'll give, every year. We'll sit down with you. We keep your spreadsheet up to date with your assets and make sure that everything is able to be found. You were talking about your spreadsheet, and that's what comes to my mind. So many families, like, I don't even know where things are. They had 10 bank accounts. Which banks?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's crucial. Well, good. Well, this has been a good talk. I love a lot of your ideas as far as how to attack such an important topic. I really appreciate you coming on the team.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you and talk to you further about some of this stuff, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, you can always go to our website. That's the easiest thing to remember, silvaslaw.com, silvaslaw.com.
Okay.
That'll have all of the rest of the contact information or a way to, contact our office with a form. And then we'll reach out to you and figure out what you might be needing and get you scheduled with an attorney.
Okay. Well, that's perfect. So we'll put that in the show notes so that everybody has it. And I do encourage you to reach out to Tammy if you have questions or concerns or something like this, like for instance, that, business and a revocable trust concept, if these are intriguing to you and you feel like you need to do some work in this area, reach out to Tammy and I'm sure they'd be able to help you out. Thanks so much for being on. Thanks to everybody for showing up and listening to us today. We appreciate you. And as I always say, if you know somebody, a business owner or somebody who advises business owners who you think would be great on the show, please let me know so that we can get them on here and continue to share great content so we can all get better. Hope everybody has a great week. Take care.